Hey guys, Ice Hockey Aussies here, back for another week of power rankings. To get us kick-started today, we've got Jaden with P32.
Yeah, P32 doesn't change for me this week. San Jose Sharks.
Yeah, it changes for me this week, but I have the San Jose Sharks as
Okay,
well.
okay. So you've come to your senses already.
Yeah, well, Columbus looked good. All right, Columbus looked good this week, so I had to give them some love.
Yeah, San Jose only get 1 out of 6 points. They OT against Edmonton, then get destroyed by Vancouver 7-2, and then lose to Calgary 5-3. So, and in the Edmonton game, they concede 4 goals, one in OT. So five overall. They're conceding a lot of goals. Doesn't look pretty, but it is what it is, I guess. It's what happens when you sell your best player.
I mean, the sad thing about it is, are they going to get more than 20 wins this year? Like, they're still not above 20 wins. Like they've got 19 wins on the season. The only reason they're even close to any other team in points is because they know how to take games to overtime. That's the only saving grace for them this year. Um, yeah, it's not been good. And considering some of the players they've got on their team, I know they're aging, a couple of them, but I just don't feel like they should be as bad as they are. It's
Nah,
yeah.
they really shouldn't be as bad as they are, but it's been a lot of mismanagement by management. I don't think coaches or anything. It's just like mismanagement of assets. You bring in Coulson, which is basically Brent Burns, and then you had them like two of the same player. Then you get rid of the better one, keep the worst one, in my opinion. So yeah, it is what it is. But
Yeah.
hopefully, well, I don't say hopefully, but I guess they have a good chance of getting Bedard now. So and they or at least
Yeah.
a very good player. Even not getting Bedard, you're still probably going to get a really good player in this draft.
Yeah, exactly. So, it hopefully it'll look up for them. I'm sure
Mm.
they can turn it around. I still think it's going to be a 3, 4, 5 year rebuild at minimum. But just with the Carlson contract and a couple other things that they've got going on, but they can definitely turn it around. It's just going to take some time.
Alrighty,
All right,
31.
P31. I have the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yes, I'm the same. Got Chicago there. They moved down a little bit further, -3 and -2. So coming back to earth, really.
Yeah, they had a bit of a sort of spark there where they were sort of winning a few games, turning it on, looking like a reasonable side. But yeah, they've sort of come crashing back down a little bit. They had a good win against Boston 2 weeks ago, last week, sorry. But they got absolutely belted by Colorado. They got absolutely belted by Washington this week. So yeah, sort of bit of a falling back to where they should be. So
Yeah, well, they've traded out their best forwards, and one of their other best forwards not playing for the rest of the season. Um, Only scoring 2 goals in 3 games. You're pretty much guaranteed not to win any, essentially, and that's just the way it's played out. It's kind of what they wanted in regards to selling off at the deadline.
oh yeah,
Alrighty,
100%. Like they're rebuilding. So
yeah,
this position isn't a shock for anyone,
nah,
and I don't think they mind it.
nah, not for the next probably almost 10 teams or so. Uh,
Yeah, for
on
sure.
onto number 30, I have the Anaheim Ducks, -3 positions, falling a little bit from me from last week.
Yeah, I didn't go as hard on the fall, but yeah,
Yeah,
just the one
I know you,
position
you like
higher.
to make mistakes. It's fine. But nah, like they lose all 4 games this week. They don't get any points at all. They don't take any into OT or anything. The most amount of shots they got this week in a game was 25. The other two were 20, and then they had 18. And conceding 40 shots, 43 shots, 33, and then 36. So there's no offense, there's no defense, there's nothing to really like about what happened this week.
That's pretty much been the Ducks all year, though, to be fair. No offense, no
Well, that's why they're
defense.
down here, isn't it?
Well, exactly. I think that their only saving grace has been Gibson. So, and that's when he's been able to do it. So
Yeah. Alrighty. I got nothing else to add for the Ducks there.
the Ducks, all right. Well, moving on to my 30. I did heavily consider the swap around of these two teams. But yeah, Columbus Blue Jackets after having a okay week. Um, Good week by their standards. I mean, anytime a team down here wins more than one game, it's generally a good week.
Yeah, it's like, oh, and this team moves 2 or 3 positions. And it's like, what did they do? Oh, they won a game.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
pretty much. I was concerned with the way they lost to Vegas and Montreal, but also, they won against Washington and the Islanders. So they pick up two good wins, but also those losses are really ugly losses.
yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah,
it's hard.
yeah. It's exactly, you're right. My issue with it is just how many goals they're conceding.
Hmm.
They conceded 25 goals against in 4 games, and I think the next highest for the week was 18. So
Hmm.
it's complete blowout every game. It is good that they got the firepower that they can scrape some wins. It's complete opposite to what we just talked about in regards to like a Chicago or Anaheim, where they are
Hmm.
getting a little bit of offense, obviously Gaudreau, Line and whatnot. But yeah, just way too many goals conceded.
They haven't conceded less than four goals for, oh, Jesus, and 11 games. They,
Yeah, that's rough.
wow,
That's rough.
they've conceded four or more goals in the last 11 games they've played. Yeah, yeah, you can understand why they're at the bottom of the table. That's for sure.
Alrighty, on to 28. Team moving up a couple. I got the Montreal Canadiens.
Hey, there we go. We've matched up again finally.
Hey,
No, they've bounced back after a bit of a couple of rough weeks.
yeah, they only played 3 games. They win 2 of them. The one loss to Boston, so excusable there. And they even outshot them. Um, they do beat Tampa 3-2, and they destroyed Columbus 8-2. Um, so good week. Really competing week. Really, they played good in all their games. I'd say, or at least competed in all their games, and it's probably not what you want to see, but it's definitely been that yo-yo of a season. Um, this 28 mark is probably 25 to 28 is where they've been about all the season, but obviously had a crash last week.
Yeah, for sure. I think I think they've had glimpses of looking good throughout the year. They've always teetered around the mid 20s, but um, yeah, like they've shown glimpses of that they can head in the right direction with the youth they've got, but it's definitely going to be another year or two before they're competing properly. And you can see that in the fluctuation of their performances, where they'll go a couple of weeks playing really well and then a couple of weeks playing really, really poorly. So yeah, they'll need a few more pieces and a bit of experience in some of those highly skilled young players they've got. But I think they're definitely building something, especially if they can sort of move that carry price contract on at some point and clear a couple other contracts. I think they'll be headed in the right direction pretty soon.
Yeah, that carry price contract really does hurt. 4 years, 10.5 mil. Yeah.
Yeah, that's monstrous. All right, moving on to 27 for myself. I have the Detroit Red Wings.
Alrighty, I've done the same thing. It's
Hey,
fall from grace, really. This team, kind of
it's
like we,
not
yeah,
it's not getting any better. It's not getting any better.
Like we
That's for
said last
sure.
week, this is a team to investigate for throwing on purpose. Just how quickly they switched it on. They- They've
Yeah,
they've hit it out of the park.
yeah. Before deadline day, they're in the playoffs, and then a few weeks later, they're just nowhere to be seen. Almost in the Bedard race at this point. Um, yeah, where are they? They're 25th in
Mm.
the NHL standings, and if they keep falling, honestly, they could fall as low as probably 27th. I can't. Well, Montreal might catch them, but I doubt it. Um, yeah, that's a big fall from grace considering they're around 16th.
Yeah, and it's not like they had a hard week. They played 4 games, two against St. Louis, one hard game against Florida. One of the St. Louis games was on a back-to-back, and then they played Philly. And the only game they won was the back-to-back game out of them all in shootout against St. Louis. So yeah, not even hard opponents, especially for a team that was vying for playoffs. So definitely a huge fall
Mhm.
from grace.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's what they sort of expected when they decided to just sell off all their players that were UFAs, basically. But um, yeah, I'm sure Userman's got a plan next year in the off season to rejig this team and gear them up for next year for sure. But yeah, it's definitely a big fall from grace really suddenly. And I think there'd be a few Detroit fans out there that are a bit disappointed because they went from, hey, we're in a playoff spot to, oh, we might get Bedard in about 2 or 3 weeks. So
Mm,
yeah,
alrighty.
one hell of a roller coaster.
Yeah, it definitely has been. On to 26. A team that didn't win any of their games this week. It is the Arizona Coyotes.
Oh, yeah. I have them just one spot above 25.
Alrighty. Yeah, like I said, they don't win any of the games. Granted, they played hard teams in Jets, Oilers, and Avalanche, and the Oilers were on a back-to-back. Funny enough, that was the only game they get a point going to OT. Um, Seems to be the trend at these bottom teams. And look, hard week. They competed in all their games. Like there's no huge blowouts here. Losing by a goal against the Jets, losing by two against Avs, and going to OT against the Oilers. So like they're always competing. That's what this team's done. But I just had to bring him down just because of basically other teams. It's not really on them in this week because they still have a good last 10 record.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I didn't drop them further. I know what you've done. I know the team you've brought ahead of them, but yeah, I just had to leave it another week. If they keep falling that way, yeah, that team below them will most likely go ahead of them. But at the moment, I had to give them a bit of love.
Alrighty, your pick.
All right, P26. I have the Philadelphia Flyers, and very good week from them.
Yeah, no, very good week. I think they're playing some really good hockey. It's kind of one of those teams that they kind of go streaky in a sense. They turn it on, then they turn it off. It looks like they turned it on at the moment. They beat win all their games this week, and they beat Florida, the Wild, and Detroit. Granted, the Wild game was in shootout, but those are two big wins. And then they
Hmm.
shut out Detroit, so they're definitely playing good. I feel like they outplayed the Wild a bit, and I'd say the Florida probably deserve the win in a sense, but Philly are playing a tough game, and once you get the goals, you get the goals. So very impressed. A little bit too late, obviously, but yeah, they're doing good.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not sure. I feel like these guys are sort of in a Vancouver position of sorts where they just refuse to pull the pin on the rebuild and go for that full rebuild, and they seem to turn it on at the wrong time, right? Like you're in a really poor position here. Just stay there and you potentially get a high draft pick. Oh no, okay, all right. You finished about 8 to 10 points out of the playoffs and in like 20 something like position. Cool. You're probably not going to get a top three draft pick because of that. Well done. And that's the only disappointment I've got with that. Like I know that players and coaches don't care about that. They're there to win. They're there to do it. It's just those teams like Philly and Vancouver, they turn it on at the back end of the year and they give their fan bases just that little glimmer of hope that, oh, look, we really finished strong last year. It cost us a draft pick, but if we bring that into next season, we'll be a good team. And then they're just dog shit the very next season. And you're like, oh, here we
Yeah.
go again.
It's pretty much
It's
impossible to
just,
bring that
yeah,
momentum through the season because of how much time goes by and everything. Um,
100%.
the problem with the like your point, like not with your point, but the problem I have with it is that you shouldn't have to look at that for the draft lottery. Basically, in my opinion,
Mm,
any team that does make the playoffs should have the same chances from 17 to 32 for the draft
yeah,
pick in the lottery, just to stop this tanking system. Because there is really no point finishing 20th. Like you're pushing for the playoffs, and then like you do a Detroit, and you're like, you know what, we'll just can it.
yeah.
So
You don't get an incentive, right? Like, everyone you should almost be praised for doing stuff like what Vancouver are doing, where they and Philadelphia, where they, will turn it on late in the season and have it and finish really strong because you're like, no, that's good. That's what we want to see. But yeah, I don't think they're ever going to get the draft system perfect because I think if they did something like that where it was just they put the 16 teams in a bucket and picked out a ball and that's who got the first pick and then like did that, there'd just be someone cracking the shits because the team that finished 17th got the first overall draft pick and
yeah,
they yeah
but that's my point. If you're going to have a salary cap error, that's the point of it. I understand that that person's probably going to be an entry level contract for 3 years, but
yeah
after that, they should be in salary cap trouble. And then they're offloading star players. So that's the point of salary cap is to balance teams. That's yeah,
yeah and you're right, like it would completely get rid of tanking because there wouldn't be a team trying to lose because it's like, well, there's no point. We may as well try and get as high as we can. The only thing you would see is what you would see anyway, and that's just the trading off of any UFA assets, right? Like you wouldn't see a team turning around and just dumping off all these players, putting them on LTIR and resting them for the year because they're like, oh, well, there's like we don't want to play you because we want to lose as many games as possible.
mm,
Um, yeah, you'd see teams actually trying to win, trying to gain some momentum, trying to play, a good system and trying to sort of get a little bit of preparation for the season, um, going forward. But
alrighty. On to pick 24. I have the Washington Capitals.
I think I've got them there. Yeah, yeah, I've got them at 24 as well.
Yeah, I think they only win one game this week. They just a fall from grace. Their only win was against Chicago. It was a 6-1 win. They lose 5-3 to the Wild. They lose an OT to Columbus in a high scoring game, 7-6, and then they lose to Pittsburgh by a goal, 4-3. Um, yeah, just a fall from grace. They're definitely not what they used to be. They definitely would have gotten probably 3 out of the 4 wins, maybe 2 out of the 4 in probably at the start of the last season onwards. But yeah, just not much to say about this team really. They're old, going for that retool rebuild, and you have to.
Yeah, it's crazy to think they're still in the playoff race, to be honest. Um,
Yeah,
they all they have to do is turn it on for the last 8 games and they're a chance. And they're a team that can do that. It's just uh, I don't at this point I can't see it happening for them. I just don't think they've got it in them. I think you're right. Like they're old. I actually don't know how they would even do a retool as well. I think that's one of my biggest issues with this team. I know um they're not going to do a full rebuild with Ovi still in the team. They're not going to do that. But I feel like this team's going nowhere for the next 3 years until Ovi ultimately retires.
Yeah, that's my concern with this team is I think they're looking at a 2013 onwards Devils,
Hmm.
um, where you got all these old players. You're trying to do this retool instead of a rebuild, and the next thing, 10 years down the line, you finally got it together. So hopefully they don't do that. But honestly, this Ovi thing could really bite them in the butt for 5+ years.
Yeah, and like don't get me wrong, I get it, right? Like he's the champion. You want him to break the record. Yeah, of course. Everyone wants to see this. But I do have a feeling it's gonna it's gonna cause them some harm, and I think you made a good comparison there. And you know what, Philadelphia's team and a few others we know that do that, where they keep just trying to put mediocre free agents into the team and hoping that it'll make them a playoff team. And they just sit in that no man's land for 3, 4, 5 years before they finally accept that they have to do a proper rebuild. Um, I just I hope for Washington fans' sake is that Ovi breaks the record next season. Or actually, sorry, it won't be next season. He'd have to score 70 fucking goals. Uh
I believe.
yeah, yeah. Two, 2 seasons. So I hope that he can score. I hope he can put up another 40-ish goals next year and then get to the record, you know, before the trade deadline in the year after. And then they can go, okay, Ovi, you've hit the record. That's awesome. We'll still keep you for however long if you want to retire a Washington, but we're going to go into full rebuild mode now because we can't. We're not going to be a playoff threat again until we rebuild. I don't want this to take all 3 years and Washington to waste those 3 years just trying to get Ovi to his goal thing. I want it to be over and done with and Washington to be able to rebuild so their fans can be like, okay, we're on the right track. The Ovi era is over. We loved it. It was great. But now we can look forward to a rebuild and hopefully being back in the playoffs in 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, moving on to number 23. I've got coming off a good week as well, this mob. St. Louis Blues.
Alrighty, I've got them at 22.
Oh, I'm interested to
Yes.
see who you've got below them.
Yes.
Nice.
I just think they've been doing well. Another one of those teams that's turned it on a little bit too late.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
they win 3 out of 4. They beat the Jets. They shoot out lose to the Red Wings. They beat the Red Wings, and then they beat the Ducks. So look, it was somewhat of an easy week, but they get 7 out of 8 points. I feel like they are playing a bit better as well. Still not the best by any means. But yeah, it's just one of those too little, too late stories, and I don't think they're not going to do anything. They're 6-3-1 in the last 10. They've probably got one of the best records in these bottom pairs, probably besides Vancouver, um, and that's why I've just got them at 22.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, they're not going to they're not a chance of making playoffs. They're 13 points out with 9 games remaining. There's no chance that they're gonna turn something around and make the or 10 games remaining, sorry. Um they're not going to make playoffs, right? But it shows they've got the players there to do a retool. This is one of the teams that I'm actually relatively confident that they can do a retool. I think they've got 3 first round picks this year in what seems to be a stacked draft, and they've got some really good young talent in that team still. Yeah, so I think this team is one of those that you get a couple of free agents, you draft well, and you can really turn this team around in probably the next year or two and have them back to competing.
Yep. Alrighty. On to my pick. The team that was below them is the Buffalo Sabres.
Oh, oh.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did
do you know what? You did. I only have them. I only have them at 22.
Yeah,
I can see what you did there. It's
yeah. My issue with
it's
them
rough.
is that they lose 7-0, then was it 7-2 to 7-3, sorry, to Nashville. Then they go and win two great games on a back to back as well. Devils and Islanders, and so the really good two Metro teams, good wins. But yeah, it's just those 7-0 and 7-3 games. I can't give a lot of credit for those other two wins because of it. Um, and because they've just been conceding too many goals for too long, and that's my biggest concern with this team.
Uh-huh.
And I
So
yeah.
yeah, look, it's concerning because in the last 2 months, since the All-Star break, since they've come back from the All-Star break, they have lost by 7 goals, or they've conceded 7 goals in 4 games. They've conceded 10 goals in one game. They've conceded 5 goals in one, two, three, four, 5 games, and they've conceded 6 goals
It's just too
since
much.
the All-Star break. That's what, 11 games. So that's 4 games with 7 goals, one with 10, five with 5. That's 11 games that they've conceded 5 or more goals
Yeah, they really did throw their
since the
season
All-Star
in
break.
in the bucket, didn't they? Um, I don't think they did enough in the off season to bolster their team either.
Half of their games since returning from All-Star break, they have conceded 5 or more goals. Just
Yeah,
put that into perspective. Yeah, that's really disappointing, Buffalo, and I hope management address that issue in the off season because they had it in their hands. They had playoffs in their hands and they've just let it slip. They've let it slip in an absolutely just drastic fashion. All right. Let's move on to P21. I'm just really disappointed. I was really hyped for Buffalo, and just the way they've dropped the ball, it's just
I'm,
yeah, yeah.
I'm
It's
sure
just it
Buffalo fans
triggered
are
it
used
triggered
to it.
yeah, it triggered me. I'm not even a Buffalo fan, but it's definitely triggered me. All right, P21. I have the Calgary Flames.
Righty, I've got them there as well. Um, yeah, I'll let you speak on them.
Yeah, I don't really. I've, s- I'm basically just going to say the same thing I've said all year. I don't know what to make of this team. They're a 500 team every week. They basically win two, lose two, win two, lose two, win two, lose one, lose two, win one. That's all they've done all year, and they continue to do it. They beat the teams that they should in San Jose and Anaheim, and then they lose to the teams that you'd expect them to in LA Kings and Vegas. They get
Mm.
absolutely pummeled by LA Kings. But this is why they're not going to make the playoffs because, they competed against Vegas and they were around the mark and they were relatively good. But that game against the Kings, they got absolutely blown out. I mean, the Kings have been absolutely phenomenal of late, absolutely phenomenal of late. But yeah, like if you're any hope that Flames fans had of making the playoffs, you could pretty much kiss them goodbye. I'd be very surprised if they make it. I just don't think that they've got it in them to
Mm.
be consistent enough over the next 8 or 9 games or whatever they've got left.
No, I'm exactly the same. They're my least favorite of the others to make that wild card spot, and yeah, it's definitely disappointing for what they've done. And like I said, they've just been 500 pretty much all season. Um, I guess I'll move on to Ottawa Senators though. It's number 20 for me.
Sure.
Yes, another
Yeah.
Canadian team. They don't move for
Mm.
me this week.
Yeah, I'm actually interested. They move up a spot for me, but they're in P20 as well.
Yeah, they had another basically 500 week. They beat Pittsburgh. They lose to Boston. They played well on the back to back. They destroyed Tampa, and then they lose to New Jersey. So pretty good week, especially considering the schedule that they had. And look, it was pretty good. It's just I just could not push them any higher really. Otherwise, it felt wrong and upsets everything else that was happening above them. Even though they are playing
Yeah,
some decent hockey and did well.
yeah, I feel you on that one because I liked their week. I thought they played some really exciting. It disappointed me in a way because I was like, do you know what? If you played like this last week and the week before, when they dropped the ball hardcore against teams that they should have beaten or should at least be competing against, not getting blown to shreds, they'd be in the playoffs right now. But they drop the ball and then they come back and they perform like they did this week against four really strong sides. I know Tampa's been down, but they beat Pittsburgh. They just lose to Boston, and they were in that game, and they had every right to even snatch that game. Um, and then they were good against New Jersey, and they absolutely pummeled Tampa. So they played really, really well. But that's, I guess, probably where Ottawa fans would be so disappointed because they can do good, such good things, and then they can do absolutely terrible, terrible things as well. So it's just that Jekyll and Hyde factor that they need to get out of their game.
Mm. Yeah, no, you're not wrong there. That's all I got to say on them.
All right, moving on to P19, a team that I don't know if fans would be happy or sad about this right now, but they are probably the hottest team in the NHL at the moment, outside of maybe the Kings and maybe the Knights, but Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, that's where I've got them as well. Um, Moving up 3 positions, like yourself. Like you said,
I
very
kind of
interesting.
I kind of could have put them in, very close to the top 16 almost, but it almost felt wrong.
Like,
They
yeah,
they played so well, but you've got no right at being even close to a playoff spot. What the hell is going on, Vancouver?
yeah.
Uh,
They
but
do beat
hey,
Anaheim and San Jose. So out of their 4 games were easy, but then they do versus Vegas and Dallas, so two harder teams.
mhm,
Losing to Vegas, but beating Dallas, destroying San Jose, um, and kind of destroying Anaheim, just not on the scoreboard. So,
mhm.
and honestly, it's interesting destroying San Jose with only 7 goals with 21 shots. No goaltending was played that day. It was kind of it was kind of sad to watch, but yeah, like you said, they've turned it on. What's their record in the last 10? It's what 8-2-0. Um, they're doing very good, very good. Turned on the wrong time. I don't. They refuse to rebuild at this point. I'm 100% confirmed. Like they don't want the picks, and they don't want their own picks to be good. So yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean they're 9-2 in their last 11 as well. And it's not just, that they beat Anaheim and San Jose this week, sure, but they beat Dallas and the Kings last week. They beat Toronto a couple of weeks before that. They've got the wins against low teams, but they've also got them against some really, really good teams as well. So yeah, if you're a Vancouver fan, I don't know. I don't even know what to tell you. I don't know if I want to tell you that, hey, things are looking up because I don't know if this is a good thing. Because I don't know if this is gonna, like I said before, they're gonna be this team that finishes this year strong, gives their fans some hope, and then next year it's just a complete shit show again. It's just, I guess it just comes
I'd
down
put
to
my
what
money
their
on that.
management can
I'd put
do.
my money on that's what's going to happen. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah,
That's where I
yeah, I
feel
could
like it's
definitely
going
see
to
it.
happen. Mm.
Yeah, I could see it happening for sure. Um, but yeah, don't know what else to make of it. It's insane.
But they're
It's
definitely
it's a
playing good
good run
hockey.
though.
Yeah, they're playing
Yeah,
good
it's a great
offensive
run.
hockey. On to 18. Another Canadian team. I have the Winnipeg Jets, and they don't move for me
Yeah,
this week.
this is the one. This is the first team who's actually in a playoff spot right now, not in the top 16.
Mm. Yeah,
It's
they've been very
just.
ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had a stellar start to the season. They've just slowly fallen off the wagon. Now I feel like they've kind of almost completely fallen off the wagon. They win their two easier games in Arizona and Anaheim this week, and then they lose the LA and St. Louis game. And even St. Louis should have been the easier one for them. Um, I don't feel like, I don't know how far you could look back, but I've just got a feeling like they're not defeating those top 10 teams at all. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like they have
Mm-hmm.
for probably a month or two. And it kind of sums up where they're at. They just can't beat the really, really good teams that are, top 10, top 12, whatnot. And they've just been trying to feed off the lower end teams to try and scrape their way into the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, they haven't won more games than they've lost in a week since returning from the All-Star break. They have only won 2 games in a row. That is their best streak since returning from the All-Stars break. It's Yeah, it's a bit of a worry, to be honest, because if they continue this form, I don't think they'll miss the playoffs. I think they'll make it because I think they've got enough lower teams to feed off of in this last stretch. That they'll pull enough points together to just keep away from Nashville and Calgary. But I s- I don't see them going far right now because I see them, unless Hellebuck just absolutely rips it to shreds in the playoffs and carries them. They're coming up against either Vegas or, well, at the moment, yeah, it'd most likely be Vegas. Um, Vegas or the LA Kings at this point, it's looking like. And I don't see them. I'd see them getting done in 4
Mm.
at this point.
No, I
So
understand that. I didn't quite like their off season either to make themselves stronger for the playoffs. They're bringing Niederreiter and Nemestikov, but I felt like
that was it.
it was still lacking, and they needed some extra oomph. They have a lot of cap space compared to other teams as well that they could have used. So yeah, I don't know if you blame management or coach or what at that point.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, they've definitely got to do something because yeah, it's not good. They're still probably gonna, like I said, gonna make playoffs, and anything can happen once you're in playoffs. But yeah, if they bring what they've been bringing lately, they'll be out just as quickly as they got in. So
Alrighty, just outside the top
all
16 now.
right, just outside top 16, and this would be my pick. I've got a team that I kind of not sure that they deserve to be here, but I couldn't put anyone above them. The Nashville Predators.
Yeah, I've done the exact same thing, and like you said, it doesn't feel like they deserve to be there, but like you said, there's not really someone that can knock them off the pedestal. Maybe besides a Vancouver, but Vancouver been so bad for so long that it's hard to do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then yeah, like you said, like they start off the week 0-7 against Rangers, then they go on 7-3 Buffalo, and that kind of sums them up where they are after this All Star break on selling off. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of you don't know what to make of the team. They win shootout against Seattle, then they lose 7-2 against Seattle. So make of it what you will.
Oh, it's tough, and you know, one of the big reasons, like Nashville have the games in hand to take that spot off of Winnipeg, but I just, with the teams they've got to face running into the playoffs, I just don't see it. They have to play far too many of the top 10 teams in the comp at the moment to make the playoffs. Like it's ridiculous. They've probably got one of the hardest runs home, and that's 100% why I can't see the Jets being kicked out.
Yeah,
So
I'm
yeah,
exactly the same.
like yeah, that's really all I've got on them, to be honest. That's just
Yeah, it's the same. Oh, they're
yeah.
doing great for a team that's sold at the deadline. They were sellers and they've done great and they've held their ground. And they're still staying in the
Hmm.
hunt, which is more you can see for other teams that bought in, like Ottawa and whatnot, and got worse. um,
Yeah.
Already starting the top 16. Interesting position for this one, the Tampa Bay Lightning. Uh,
You did go there. Do you know what?
oh, I went there.
It's definitely deserved. At this point, they could find themselves out of the top 16. I've got them just one higher at 15.
Yeah, they haven't been this low for me since the 13th to the 11th last year. Um, so
Oh,
what's that? 4 months basically, four and a bit months, and it says what's happened to them. They don't win a game this week, and they lose to New Jersey. They lose to Montreal, a team they should be beating. Get destroyed by Ottawa, and then they lose to Boston by a goal. Just not good enough for a team that's in the playoffs. I understand, they're in sort of comfortable position to make the playoffs, but I haven't liked what I've seen for probably two to 2 weeks to probably 4 weeks now.
yeah, it's it does leave you wondering, like are they doing this on purpose just to rest up some players and get ready because a they know they've got the second or third position wrapped up, right? They've got that guaranteed. They're gonna play Toronto. There's no other way that that can really go. So is it just them conserving energy for the playoffs, trying to just prepare for what they're going to face against Toronto? Or is it the fact that, all of this playoff hockey in the past, in the last 3, 4 years for them is finally catching up with them and they're just tired. It's it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong there.
All right, moving on to P16. Um, we'll stay in that Sunshine State, Florida area. Florida Panthers.
Alrighty. Um, yeah, just we just done the swap. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like they were really coming for a second there, and I thought, oh, these guys could. If they, I said it last week, if they make the playoffs, they would be dangerous the way that they're playing. And then they go and lose 3 games that, in a row, I think it was.
Yeah, it was in a row. Started with Philly,
Yeah,
then Toronto, then Rangers.
yeah, like the Toronto and Rangers, that's almost a playoff warm up for them. And to get into the playoffs, you need to win these games, and they just couldn't do it. But that Philly game, that's a game that, given the situation for them right now, you can't drop that game. You need to win every game possible at this point. And yeah, it's just disappointing considering how they had been looking prior to that.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I don't think it's the wheels falling off the wagon in a sense. Like
Oh
think
no,
I think
no.
Philly's playing extremely good hockey at the moment. However long that lasts, we'll see. Toronto's Toronto, and the Rangers are the Rangers. So look, really hard. 3 games, honestly. I'd even throw Philly in there just because of how they've been playing. But to make playoffs with how they played at the start of the season, you kind of need to edge at least one of these games as a win. And if you're losing, you want to lose no T. That's the thing, and they're just
And
not
that's
doing
it,
that.
and that's what I mean. Like, this was a really disappointing week for them. So take two points out of 8 out of a week that they would have been going, well, we should have 4 minimum this week. And they didn't even get to that. So yeah, a bit disappointing. Like I said, they've got some. They're still in the in with a shot to make the playoffs, right? They win their game in hand on the Islanders, and they're literally only 2 points behind them. So they're definitely there, and they're definitely a chance to make it. But it's weeks like this that you just go, I don't know if they've got what it takes, because that was a week that they could have proven that they're ready and that they're gonna take this playoff spot, and it just didn't happen for them.
Alrighty, on to 14. Metro team with the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Mhm.
Move,
Yep. That's where I've got them as well.
yeah, moving up 2 positions. They win 2 out of the 4 they played this week. I just think they're playing really good hockey, though, even in the games they've lost. I feel like they should have won the Ottawa game. They lose that. They beat Colorado. Uh, they honestly outplayed them as well. They lose to Dallas on a back-to-back from that Colorado game, and yet they still probably, I feel like, outplayed Dallas. And then they go and beat Washington. So they play 4 games. I feel like they outplayed all their opponents this week, and but they
Mhm.
only come out of the with 2 wins, which does hamper their playoff run chances. But
Mhm.
I do feel like there are you know that old Penguins that really does push hard. The old Crosby and old Penguins.
Yeah, and and it's really sad, isn't it? Because they were they played so well in both those Dallas and Ottawa games, but they don't even get a point. And that's what really hurts them at this point. In their last 7 games, they've received 4 points. So they are 2-5 in their last 7 games.
Yep.
And it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, that record looks really, really bad. But they've actually played quite well in a couple of them. Like obviously against the Rangers, they had a bit of a hiccup there, but they played really well in some of these losses. They just haven't been able to get the job done, or at least scrape it into OT and get a point out of them. And been the disappointing thing. I still think that they're good and they're looking they're playing good hockey to make playoffs right now. They just need to get that last piece to actually pick up these extra points that they're leaving on the table.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to P13 and the other Metro team in that wild card spot, the New York Islanders.
Yeah, I've done the same thing. 13 as well, up 2 places. Look, we've done the same thing from our last weeks as well. And
Oh wow, jeez, I like it.
yeah, they started off the week with a banger, beating Toronto 7-2. They go to OT and lose against the Jackets. Then on the back-to-back, they get shut out by Buffalo. So they started on the high and it just slowly slid down the ladder for them. Um, you know, lucky for Penguins that they've done that. Then they don't get that full points from Buffalo or Jackets. And I think they're playing really good hockey. I think they are one of the biggest threats along with the Penguins at the moment. It's just, same case with the Penguins. Like they just got to get the results in the games that they should. Um,
Mhm.
but granted to them, they did go to OT with Blue Jackets. They you would like to just see them win that in regulation.
Yeah, and I think that's quite similar to the Pittsburgh games we were talking about. They got to OT with Columbus, which is that's your first step, right? Because they were behind going into the third. They pulled it back, took it to OT, at least got a point. So you can say that's really good. But then against Buffalo, they were 1-0 down and then conceded an empty net goal in a game that they really could have taken to OT. So it's probably just a story of letting themselves down, both these teams, to really clinch that playoff spot. I feel like this week for Islanders, Penguins, and Panthers was a real sort of letdown week, even though all 3 teams played reasonably well. They just all 3 teams just choked under pressure and let themselves down a little bit.
Yeah, I just still think all these teams, even though they're not getting the results, they are playing good hockey. And that's
Yeah,
the thing
for
that's
sure.
keeping them alive. That's why they are as high as they are
Hmm.
already. On to number 12. Only a small little movement. It is the Dallas Stars. Not a
Oh
falling
yeah,
star, just a little sliding star. And
no, but we've kept this streak going for a little while now. I think it's since what 21. I think we've had the same lineup. That's impressive. Probably one of our longest streaks all season.
now we're doing good. And the Dallas aren't doing as good. Um, they only win 1 out of the 3. They do go to OT in one of the games, so they get 3 out of 6 points. OT against Kraken, they beat the Pens. they lose to Vancouver, which is a hot Vancouver. So pretty hard week. Uh, I would just like to have seen them kind of do what they were doing at the start of the season, win 2 out of 3. It just
Hmm.
seems like some of these Western Conference teams just starting to slide a little bit that were doing good at the start of the season, and some of the ones that were sliding at the start, things like Colorado are doing better now. But it's sad because I feel like they were one of the best teams in the West, especially during the start and middle of the season. But it's sort of slowly unraveling.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, at the moment, I can't see Colorado not finishing top. So we're literally going to get a Minnesota versus Dallas first round playoff series. I mean, it might not happen, but I just can't see Colorado not finishing top at this point. Which is going to be interesting because Minnesota and Dallas was our um the two teams we had making the Stanley Cup final in our early season. If the playoffs were to start today, I went Minnesota, you went Dallas, so we could see a bit of a battle there. Um, but no, you're not wrong. They're sliding at the wrong time, but also they've done enough to wrap up their playoff. They're probably similar to Tampa at this point. Um, you know, if they finish top, they're going to come up against either a Seattle or an Edmonton, maybe a Winnipeg. I don't know right now. Where would you prefer to finish? Are you rather playing a Minnesota, Colorado, or are you rather playing a Seattle, Winnipeg?
Seattle,
Um,
Winnipeg, my friend.
yeah,
that
yeah,
that that's
that's
that's my preference.
I definitely wouldn't want to play Colorado
Mm,
personally. Um, but yeah, I think Seattle I'm interested to see in the playoffs personally.
alrighty.
Anyway, moving on. Actually, talking about Seattle, at number 11, we've got the Seattle Kraken.
Yeah, all right. We'll
So
keep the
may as well,
streak going.
yeah, exactly. We may as well keep going from there. Um, yeah, it's just nothing really to write home about with this Kraken team, right? But they've pretty much sewn themselves up a spot. I can't see them really losing it from here. But a reasonably good week. They take 5 out of 6 points. They beat Nashville 7-2. They lose to Nashville in a shootout, and they beat Dallas 5-4
Mm,
in OT. So, you know, that's really all you're wanting from them right now, right? Like that's yeah, like all you want as a Seattle fan is them to make the playoffs. Just don't get kicked out because that'll just be huge for the franchise in their second season. And I think they've done enough. They've got a 7 point
yeah,
buffer
7 point
between
buffer
them and Calgary,
and 2 extra games.
and they've got 2 extra games. So yeah, it would be a massive fall off if they were to not make it right now. Um, it just for them, I guess the real push is who do you want to play in the first round
Mm.
at this point?
Now, this is one
Um,
of my favorite teams at this position. I've liked the way they played hockey. I find it exciting. I find it's kind of complete hockey when it works,
mhm.
and I feel like they aren't as strong as they were when they were doing it consistently, but they can still pull it off. And when they do, they're probably one of the hardest teams to beat in the league. And that's what I just like it. It's the type of style I like to watch. I like
Yeah.
some of their players and Berniers and whatnot. So I would love to see this team in the playoff. I think they've wholeheartedly deserved it. It's going to be very hard for them not to make it, but stranger things have happened.
Well, they've got 3 games against Arizona, a game against Anaheim, a game against Vancouver, a game against Chicago. So I get Vancouver are playing a little bit better, but when you look at their run home, if
Mm,
they don't make it, there's something gone wrong. But this is why I was saying, like, I'm not sure about Seattle if I would want to face them in the playoffs because I just don't know what they're going to bring because of exactly what you said. When they get it right, they are one of the toughest teams to beat in the NHL. When it goes wrong and their goaltending falls apart, as it has, because that's the questionable part of their team at the moment, it falls apart in a big way. So it's going to come down to what we get in the playoffs because it could be the difference from them sweeping a team to them being swept, and that's like I'm going to be watching that whatever series, whoever they play in the first round of the playoffs, really closely because I'm excited to see what they bring, and I really hope it's good. I hope they don't fall apart.
Alrighty, starting off the top 10, I have a team not moving. It is the Edmonton Oilers. Um, Fan old favorite. Team that had to go to OT every game this week against some somewhat poor teams. OT win against San Jose with 52 shots. OT win against Arizona. They kept them to 17 shots. And then they go to OT and lose against Vegas. Uh, I don't know. I don't know what to make of this team. It really is sometimes just a McDavid factor, and I feel like this team kind of can survive a little bit more on those OT wins because they have a McDavid and whatnot who can scrape that extra point and
Mhm.
make their records look a little bit better than what they are. And obviously, you don't get that when it comes to playoffs because OT hockey is 5v5. So
Mhm.
that's my concern with the Oilers at the moment. Though McDavid's doing McDavid things, breaking 60 goals, trying to break the record for the NHL, and I like it. A lot of stuff I don't like, um, and there's just things to clean up, and they just need depth scoring, and you really do need that in playoffs, and I don't think they're going to get it.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern, and that's been my concern with them all year. Is like you go even now to their top goal scorers. They've got um basically four goal scorers, and then nothing else outside of that. And look, I mean, Evander Kane coming into the fold definitely helps. He does give them that extra person. But yeah, I mean, outside of McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, and Hyman, it sort of falls away quite a lot. And that's definitely a concern I have as well. Not just that is if they're not getting three or four power plays a game, that also tidies up their scoring. Because that's been a massive points um of their game this season is that when they're on the power play, they're just absolutely deadly. Um, and yeah, in the playoffs, you're going to come up against those teams that are probably. I mean, referees are going to be a little bit more reluctant to give away penalties in the playoffs. Even though it shouldn't change their mentality, it will. But also you're playing against top-notch teams that are much better at not giving away penalties as well.
Mm.
So yeah, I feel like that could be an area that they fall down. They just don't have the depth scoring. They're it's not just they don't have the depth scoring. I also feel like that's where they get taken advantage of as well,
Oh yeah, no,
is on their
yeah,
lower lines.
you're
So
not wrong
like
there at all.
they don't score, but they also get scored against. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. McDavid can turn anything into a just absolute phenomenal, but it'll be interesting to see what they can do
Yeah.
come playoffs for sure.
Yeah, my big issue with them, like you brought up, is their depth getting always scored on. They don't have anybody outperforming their contracts. The only people they do is Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, and Kane. They're all
Hmm.
on 5 million, just over $5 million dollars. They're basically Kane, Nugent and Hyman are over a point a game. Kane just slightly under. They're outpacing their contract, but it's not by much. Like it's a bit, but obviously they're feeding off power play points from McDavid and playing on his lines. But their depth, like Yamamoto for 3 million, is very underwhelming. Fogel, Ryan, Janmark, like McLeod, like it just goes on. Like these depth is very underwhelming. It's kind of what Toronto had issues with, and they fixed it. And just Oilers have not done that, and I don't think it's going to last in the playoffs at all. Uh,
Yeah, for sure. It's
all
definitely
right,
a concern.
on to nine for your pick.
All right, on to number nine. I've got a team that actually had a reasonable week, but I just couldn't move them up. Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, the Wild could be the wild card in the playoffs. Haha, no pun intended. But yes,
Oh,
definitely deserving
Jesus.
the top 10. Just don't mind me. Dad jokes now, boys.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So they start off good. They beat Capitals. They beat New Jersey in OT. They shoot out lose to Philly. That coin flip whichever way that goes. Then they beat Chicago. So really good week. 7 out of 8 points. You take it every day of the week, no matter who you're versing. And a very strong team. I just couldn't move them up even with that strong week, just for how other teams above them were playing. I think the top eight, even basically top 10 are just seriously really strong.
Yeah, well, they're definitely playing good hockey at the right time of the year, right? Like they're doing the right thing. So a couple of teams have had games not go their way or results not go their way in the last 10 games, but they're still playing very, very strong hockey. And that's one of the big things is, yep, results aren't always going to go your way, but if you're still playing a real solid brand of hockey, it'll turn your favor eventually. And yeah, I couldn't probably the top nine. I think Edmonton are playing well and they're beating teams, but I'm just not sure that their brand of hockey stands up. I think it's a lot to do with their top line. Um, but yeah, I definitely think that top nine is incredible at this point.
Alrighty, on to P8. Uh, Tossed a turn with this one, but I have the Rangers. Um, tossed and turned with having them higher because they are playing great.
Mm.
But like I said, the top nine, top 10 are playing really good hockey. Really strong teams, and the Rangers are definitely one of them. And you've done the same thing as me. It's just
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't know how they go down one, right? Like Vegas are playing that good that they had to go ahead of New York, but it almost feels wrong having New York go down, especially with how they're playing.
yeah. Like they destroyed Nashville. They lose by a goal against Carolina. Then they beat Carolina by a goal, granted with only 16 shots. I was a bit surprised they scraped that one away. And then they lose 4-3 against Florida. So they're in every game. They competed uh, by a goal, winning or losing against the hard teams in Carolina and Florida. And that's the thing that they're very, very strong. They're not getting blown out. They blew out Nashville. And my only hiccup for me was only getting 16 shots against Carolina. I was a little bit
Yeah.
surprised that they scraped that one away, but that's what happens when you have good defenders and also a good goaltending as well.
Yeah, well, exactly. And we know, they've got a goaltender that is proven in playoffs. So, and that's what makes them so dangerous, right? Um, yeah, I don't think they're gonna move out of the top 10 before the end of this season. That's for sure. I think they're pretty much locked somewhere in this top 10, and they're definitely going to be a danger come playoffs.
Alrighty, at P7.
All right, P7 team that we were I was definitely considering. I'm assuming this is potentially a team that you were thinking of as well. Toronto Maple Leafs, and they dropped 4 positions, but they're not exactly playing bad hockey. I just think the teams above them are playing better.
Yeah, like you said, they're not playing bad hockey. Same with the Rangers, same with the Wild. It's just like who's playing that slightly, that little bit more. Whether it's consistency, scoring, their defense, their goaltending, whatever. But basically, these teams could all go in any order, and you could make a case for it quite substantially.
Mhm.
-4. It's just because they were so high at 3, and that's it.
Mhm.
Um, and just other teams are just playing so good. They're finally reaching the levels of the Maple Leafs that because they've been top 5 for a long time now, I'd say, and
Mhm.
they're still playing good hockey.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like they've dropped a couple of games, um, here and there. They've had a couple of real slip ups, like the New York Islanders losing 2-7. Um, but yeah, they're not playing bad hockey. I think it's just they've had a bit of a slip up and they've fallen out of the top five. But ultimately, I think yeah, I don't think it's anything to stress or worry about. I think they're still really strong. But yeah, they just had to go down for me with the way a couple of the other teams ahead of them have been playing.
Alrighty, on to P6. Pretty much the same boat as the Toronto Maple Leafs. It is the New Jersey Devils moving outside the top five for me.
Wow, we may actually get the exact same finish from 21 onwards. That's incredible.
Yeah, it
I don't think we've had
depends if we
one
made any
differ.
big calls.
Mm,
um, yeah, look, exactly the same boat as Toronto. Not playing bad hockey, just not getting all the results they should. They have a little hiccups with their goaltending at the moment. Um, but still definitely one of the strongest teams. Even when they lose, they're outplaying their opponent. Like we've said before,
hmm
that they're their own worst enemy.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, it is. It's one of the biggest downfalls of them. They can lose a game that you look at and go, how'd you lose that? You literally could have put 8 goals against the team you're playing, and you've lost. You lost 4-3. Like what the hell happened? Um, they were poor against Buffalo, but that's honestly probably the only game I think I've considered them to be poor in, um, even though they have dropped a few games over the last few weeks. I think other than that Buffalo game, they've been the better team in just about every other game they've played in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, the results aren't necessarily going their way, but they're still playing stupidly strong hockey, and it really all comes down to them. Their fate is in their own hands. If their defense can turn it on and be solid like they've been throughout the year, and the goaltenders can get back to playing really good hockey as well, they're going to be really tough to beat. But if they keep making these silly mistakes that turn into easy turnover goals, they'll find themselves out of playoffs quick smart.
Alrighty, on your pick.
Onto my pick, pretty much the team they're chasing for that number one spot. I've got the Carolina Hurricanes just slipping down a position, similar to the Devils, really. Still playing a really strong game. They're just not getting the results.
Yeah, that's where I've got them as well. Just had to double check.
hmm
P5 for me. I guess it comes down to the next few to see if we make any changes. But yeah, like you said, slight slip. They're still playing great hockey though, despite their top five. And New Jersey Devils are definitely chasing them down. With also Rangers on their heels, to find out who maybe gets the easier playoff. Because I don't think you want to verse the Rangers or the Devils, or Carolina in the
No.
first one. So you definitely want to be versing that wild card spot.
Yeah, even though the Pens, Florida, or Islanders are three strong teams, they're still better than playing one of those other three, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, I still think these guys are going to be really tough to match up against in the playoffs. I could definitely see these guys in the Eastern Conference Finals. Um, they've got all the tools to do it. I think one of your concerns was their goaltending. And honestly, that probably is the only real area, and maybe their scoring um potential. But yeah, other than that, they've pretty much got it. They've got a team there to take them all the way.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess we move on to number four then. I'm just having a look if I have it all correct. Um, yeah, all right. No, I'm just having a look. It looks a little muddled up. I think I missed my 3 and 4 around. but I
Oh
have
no.
no, on my original list there, the wrong way around for me. But number 4 for me, I have. Jeez, oh, I'm gonna do it. Am I gonna do it? I'm gonna do it. It is the LA Kings.
Oh, you killed it. You killed it. Oh, Jesus Christ. I've got the LA Kings at number 3.
Alrighty. Um, no problem. I was just having a look around. Yeah, LA Kings here. Number 4, 2 positions down. I was just showed a little bit of my rest of it. Playing good hockey. I had them above Vegas, uh, and then I was just flipping and turning on who really should be there or not. And I think they're playing really good hockey. They're playing a really good tic tac toe, LA Kings,
Hmm.
and I really like it. They're very threatening. It's very dangerous, and I just worry about the defense. Watching a couple of games, just their defense does some stupid things sometimes, like going 2 defenders to 1 player on the boards and then leaving a guy open in the slot, and that's my concern with them.
Yeah, well, I think, like I've been pretty harsh on these guys, especially early on. Um, But the thing I liked about that, I don't regret being harsh on them because they truly, even though they were getting results, they were truly playing disgusting hockey. I was like, these guys, they're not going to maintain this if they keep playing this style of hockey. They've cleaned up a lot of that. Um, but yeah, like you're pretty much spot on there. Their defensive lapses sometimes can really cause them trouble, but it is something that was causing them trouble early on, even though they were still managing to get the wins. But they've worked on it, and I can see the improvement throughout the year. They've gotten better and better. They've still got an issue there, but yeah, if they can continue to work on that and clean that up a little bit, they're going to be a really dangerous team come playoffs. Because a team that can improve on those areas so quickly throughout the season. Um, yeah, they've been able to address their issues through the season so well that even though they still have little tiny issues here and there, I have no doubt that they can tighten them up before playoffs.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong there. Alrighty, on to your pick.
All right. Onto my pick, which I'm assuming is going to be your number 4, unless you've made some craziness here. But it's the Vegas Golden Knights, and I can understand why you've got them above the Kings.
Yeah, I
It's
didn't
almost a coin flip.
till I just flipped it just then. Because while we've been talking, I've just been having a little bit longer look and then my little biases. But originally, before the video, it was the other way around. Maybe should have stuck with it just so we
Y-
had the streak going. But
Yeah.
another
Well,
team, another
look,
team playing very good.
it's not a bad call. I'm going to say that. Like either one of these two teams are well deserved in this top 5. Um, this month alone, they've lost 2 games.
Mm.
2 games the Knights, sorry, have lost two
Yep.
games. And it you can say, oh, they've only lost 2 games, but they might have had an easy draw. A little bit here and there, but they've still had to beat teams like Carolina, New Jersey, Tampa Bay. They played Carolina twice. And they've gotten those wins, right? There's three very good teams, and they've got 4 big wins against them. They beat Edmonton, they beat Calgary, they beat a hot Vancouver, which, at the moment, in Vancouver, if they were better in the early stages, they're probably one of the most dangerous teams if they could make a playoff spot at this point. Um, so yeah, they're playing good hockey at the right time.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. These Knights and Kings team, I think they're very intertwined. It's just I see a little bit more flaw with the Kings defense, and that's all was really. But I think the Kings offense is better than the Knights. Um,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
that's where I yo-yo. It's like, what do I value more with these 2 teams? And but no, it's good to see them in the top 5. 2 Western Conference teams that weren't here. well, Vegas have been, I think, a little bit, but they've been a little bit lower, and it's good to see these teams up there pushing some of the long striding teams in New Jersey, Carolina down.
Yeah. The only thing I'm disappointed here with this is I was really hoping it was going to be a round one Kings versus Knights playoff and Jonathan Quick coming up against the King. But we may have to wait until round two for that.
Alrighty, on to pick two, pretty standard, Colorado, no movement.
Oh, oh, really? I've actually put them at number two also.
Woo! Big moves. Yeah, just I don't know. Colorado was Colorado. They're the same as they were last year. They beat Arizona. They beat Chicago. Games they, you know, you expect them to beat, but they do lose to Pittsburgh 5-2. And they did get outplayed, but they're still playing amazing hockey. Still, very scary team. I don't want to see them in the playoffs at all. If you're a team in the playoffs, and honestly, like we were saying, that they probably have an easy run, but you know, look below them, and there's a few Western Conference teams there now, so they might have some competition. But I still, I think they're almost in a league of their own, along with Boston.
Yeah, look, I think the dangerous thing about these guys, I know, obviously the Kings and Vegas are playing quite well at the moment. But if you look at who they've got to come up against in their division, they've got Dallas or Minnesota. Right now, Minnesota and Dallas are what, ninth and 12th in the rankings. Um, it's not as easy of a run as we probably first imagined for Colorado to get to the playoffs. But I would much rather be in the West than the East. And I think that's what's really scary for these Western teams is they probably all thought that they were in with a big shot to make the Stanley Cup final with Colorado playing as bad as they were. And now Colorado are back to their potentially back to their best. And it's like, wow, shit. Hell, crap. We're gonna have to come up against these guys in the playoffs to get to the Stanley Cup. Because at this point I can't see Minnesota or Dallas getting past them.
No, I think they're going to win their conference, and I think they'll win it comfortably, honestly, with just how consistent they're starting to play compared to the Wild and Dallas and basically any other teams you want to shout out at them. They'll probably even possibly win the West itself. Um, and look, I'm afraid of them, and they're not going to come up against some huge contestant like Boston until the Cup final, if that does happen. But I guess we can move on to your number one pick, Super Shock.
Oh, oh, who would have known her? Like, God, this is just so left field. The Boston Bruins just again because my God, Boston. What you can't give someone else a shot at the top. Uh,
Mm,
Look, this is the scariest thing about this for Boston and Boston fans is if they get kicked out in the first round, this is going to be one of the biggest wastes of a season you'll ever see. Like, this has
yep.
been such a phenomenal season from them. They have 119 points and they still have 9 games left. They can get they can get 137 points this season. That's incredible. That is ridiculous. They could end up with 66 wins. Like that's just crazy. Um, so yeah, look, I think anything less than a first round win is for these guys, they need to make the conference finals at minimum, technically, but
Yeah,
at
no, I think
least
it's
get out of
conference
the
final.
first round. Yeah, at least get out of the first round because if you get kicked out in the first round, Boston, oh, I'm not sure you could live that down. Um, yeah,
So
they've been phenomenal. It'd be just ludicrous for them to get kicked out in the first round. But
yeah, maybe like a
we know
Columbus to Tampa type situation happens to him, but just get
Well, that's
swept
what
in
it
the
would
first
be.
round. But yeah, that'd be horrible. But I don't see any flaws in the game at the moment. Um, it's just strong throughout. I
Well, it really is.
I just think only Colorado are at their level at the moment. Um, and Carolina is one of the biggest threats with Toronto. Um, I'd say even New Jersey. New Jersey has had their number in the past, um, even when they've been bad. But I feel like they're still in a league of their own at the moment compared to these other teams. And over a
Yeah,
7 game streak, I don't know if any of those teams could pull it together at the moment.
long enough. Yeah, I think that my biggest concern with New Jersey, I feel like they've got all the pieces and they could do it, but it's unproven. And
Oh,
with them being their
I'm just going off
own
they've
worst
had their
enemy.
number in the past. That's it.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I agree with you on that. It's just I think New Jersey being their own worst enemy, I really think come playoffs when the pressure's on, that there, if they can't get that out of their game, that is going to destroy them come playoffs. Um, Especially if they came up against the Boston Bruins. Um, the Bruins would just take advantage of that left, right, and center. Yeah, it's for me at the moment. I think at both of our top two, that's pretty much your Stanley Cup final at this point. That's what it's looking like.
Mm.
Not to say that none of these other teams can do it, because I think that they're all very strong from probably 1 to 9. Um, but like you said, they're probably the two standout teams right now, Boston and Colorado. Oh,
Alrighty, I guess that's it there.
unless you got something to say. Yeah.
No, that's it there for me. Um,
Oh, awesome.
Alrighty. Don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment down below what you think of the power rankings and who you think best chance of getting out of the first round, getting knocked out in the first round, and winning the cup. And I guess yeah, leave a like, leave a comment. We'll get back to you on if you leave a comment, and then until then, I guess we'll see you next time.
Take care, guys.